Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we are talking about one of the most crucial topics for developers, RESTful API design best practices. Whether you are building your first API or preparing for technical interview, following best practices will help you create clean, scalable, and maintainable APIs. So, first thing in the best practices is to use nouns, not verbs in the endpoints. When designing your RESTful API, the first rule is to use nouns in your resource URIs, not verbs. Remember, in REST, your endpoint should represent resources, not actions. So a bad example for that is to use, for example, a get user. Um, um, a bad example, let me try to copy it for you. This is a bad example. A good example is to just use it like that, users. So the action like retrieving or creating user should be handled by the HTTP methods like get and post, not by the endpoint names themselves. Number two, use HTTP methods correctly. RESTful API rely heavily on the correct use of HTTP methods to perform actions on resources. For example, get to retrieve data, post to create a new resource, put to update or replace an existing resource, patch to partially update an existing resource, and delete to remove a resource. Using these methods properly improves the clarity and predictability of your API. For example, you would use get users to retrieve a list of users and post users to add a new user. Number three, status code. Status code matters, and this is really important. Always return appropriate HTTP status code to indicate the result of an operation. This helps API consumers to understand what happened without needing to look at the response time or the response body. Some of the most common ones are, for example, 200 awk, and this one is to means everything went as expected. Number two, 200 created. This one is like a new resource was successfully created. Number three, 400 bad request. This the request was invalid or malformed. Number four, 400 unauthorized. This the client must authenticate itself to get the requested response. And number four or number five, 404, which is not found. That means the request resource couldn't be found. And lastly, 500, which is internal server error. This means like something went wrong on the server side. Sorry. Other thing we need to talk about, which is versioning, API versioning. So APIs evolve over time, and it's important to version them so that changes don't break existing clients. There are several ways to version your API. The first thing is URI versioning. Don't know if you're familiar with this one. It will be something like v1 slash users. It will be something like that. There is header versioning, like adding a version header to the request, like something like that. Yeah, let's just put accept. Yeah, it will be something like that. There is URI versioning. URI versioning is the most common approach, but header versioning offers more flexibility when dealing with different API versions without cluttering the URL. Number five, handle pagination, sorting, filtering. When your API returns a large dataset, it's a good idea to implement pagination, sorting, and filtering. This not only improves performance, but also gives API consumers more control over the data they receive. Pagination, for example, it will be something like that. This one returns page 2 with 10 users per page. And sorting, it will be something like that. It's like we sort the users by the creation date in descending order. And filtering example, it will be something like that. It's that returns only users with admin role, for example. The other thing that we need to talk about also, which is to use a consistent naming convention. Consistency is a key in making your API easy to use and understand. Stick to a naming convention for your resources and paths throughout your API. There are some best practices. For example, you can use a snake case or camel case. This is a snake case, this is a camel case. For query parameters and request bodies, you need to stick to lowercase letters in your URLs. Be clear and sorry, I have corona, so I'm pretty ill. Be clear and descriptive in your names. Okay, number 7, secure your API with authentication and authorization. API security is crucial, especially when dealing with sensitive data. Implement authentication and authorization to control who can access your API. A common method, you can use OAuth2, like use a platform like Google and Facebook, allowing users to grant limited access to their accounts without sharing credentials. You can use API keys, like simple but less secure API keys are often used to identify the calling project. You can use JW token, like JSON Web Token, often used for stateless authentication, where the token is sent with each request and verified server side. Number 8, you should provide a detailed error messaging. Let's put this one here and make it, yeah, really big. Yep. So when something goes wrong, your API should return detailed help for error messages. Don't just return a vague something went wrong message. Instead, provide a clear description of what the issue is and how the client can fix it. So, for example, error, invalid request message, email is required. Tells the client exactly what's wrong and gives them the information they need to fix their request. So, in conclusion, some of the best practices we said before: we need to use nouns, not verbs. We need to use a correct HTTP methods and status code. We need to implement versioning, pagination, and security, and always provide a detailed error messaging. If you found this video helpful, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Let me know in the comment section what other topics you'd like me to cover. In the next video, we will dive into error handling in APIs, so stay tuned.